Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. This episode with Jeremy Parker, a front-end software developer at Apple, happened because of a couple mentees at Parsity that had been writing on LinkedIn, which is yet another reason why you should probably be on LinkedIn learning in public, even if it feels uncomfortable for a number of reasons. But things like this are why I encourage people to do it. Anyway, in this episode, which you can skip around because I think there's some sections which are going to be really, really useful and super helpful for early career developers, and other sections which are going to be more helpful for people that are a little bit further along in their career. Jeremy has a unique story. He spent a long time trying to break into software and finally did, and now works at Apple. He has all sorts of great advice, really practical stuff. And if you have a suggestion for a show or a question you would like answered, I would love to know. And you can write directly to me at brian@parsity.io, because I know that this audience is full of really smart people that might have questions that I'm not fully addressing during these shows. So why not just ask me directly? Anyway, I really hope you enjoy this show, and you can look at the chapter markers that are at the bottom of the episode, whether you're on Spotify or Buzzsprout or wherever, and you can look at the chapter markers to skip around and find the sections that you feel are the most important and things that you want to learn. I really hope you enjoy it, and see you on Thursday for the next episode. All right, today on the Develop Yourself podcast, I'm joined by Jeremy, a front-end software engineer at Apple. He's worked with JavaScript, TypeScript, Swift, PHP, React, and my personal favorite, or maybe my personal not so favorite, Ember. And he's built a mindset and technical skills that I think are needed to thrive in a high-stakes environment. He's also spoke with a few people from Parsity, which led to us speaking and thinking this would be a great chance for him to share what he's learned on his journey, diving into things like code reviews, mentorship, learning new tech, and the reality of growing as a self-taught engineer. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. It's awesome to be here.
Man, and you got a heck of a career story. You currently work at Apple as a front-end engineer?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's sort of multiple ways to enter some of these, FANG companies. I am what's referred to as a contractor. So I have a specific skill, that being Ember. Not a lot of people know Ember nowadays. It was pretty big, 10 or 15 years ago. As
That's right. It's huge.
Said you're familiar with. So yeah, I was brought on because I have this skill set, and they've kept me on for well past my contract. I'm sort of yearly at this point.
That's awesome, man. And so a lot of people hearing this, they're like, "Whoa, that's nuts!" And they're probably thinking, "Okay, he probably has a computer science degree, went the traditional route. He's at a big company like Apple." Can you share with us a little bit about like how that happened? Hey, I really hope you're enjoying this episode. Now, as you may know, I've joined forces with an ex-Google engineer, Zubin Pratap, who's also an ex-lawyer and learned to code at the age of 37. He and I have very similar stories, and we've combined forces to create a highly customized and personalized coaching mentorship program for career changers who are serious about breaking into tech. If you know that the outdated coding bootcamp model won't work for you, you're serious and realize that this transformation will take time, we want to speak with you. Our program is not easy, it's not short, but it's highly effective. If you're a listener of this show, you're likely the kind of person we want to work with. If you're ready to apply, click the link in the show notes and you'll be talking to Zubin or I on the phone about the program. Now, back to the episode. How'd you go from I want to code to I'm coding to I'm at Apple?
Yeah, sure. Try to keep it, I won't get too far in the weeds. I've always been interested in programming, and it's something that I've always kind of been attuned to, whether it's kind of just tweaking the settings of my PC to trying out other sort of OSs and things like that. So I'd always been attuned to it, but the moment I would see code or just conceptually think about software, I would just think, that's for the smart people. That's not something I can do. And I remember a friend of mine, a long time ago, this was when Rails was like the big thing. He said, "Hey, you should give Rails a try. I think you'd really, really enjoy it." So I took a book out. I checked out a book and I just looked at the first page and was like, "Nope, can't do this," and just put it away. Like I had such a deep kind of negative self-esteem about just having issues growing up with things like math and logic.
Oh yeah.
I had just thought like, you know what, these are things that are just not meant for someone like myself. And so it took a long time to really to get over that. I was sort of, but I would stop over the years. Like I'm like, you know what? I think I want to give this another try. Let's check out JavaScript. And I was at such a point where I couldn't conceptually grasp things like variables.
Oh,
What's a
really?
variable? Like, yeah, I just really struggled at a really hard time with it.
Oh, this is interesting.
Because the struggles that I had with math and things like that growing up just
Mhm.
kind of made me default to think that I can't understand this, even at the most basic level. And part of that was also because for me, I was finding things like books were not taking me or getting me to a point where I really understood how coding could result in something like an app. You start with Hello World. I'm like, okay, well,
It's like
what's the next
totally
step?
useless. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's how you loop through an array of strings. Okay, cool. But I still want to be able to do something that, makes sense to me.
hmm
And when it finally clicked was, I was at the time, and this whole journey was while I was working at the same company. I was working in the learning and development group, and I was one in charge of putting together courses and things like that. The things that no one really wanted to do, but I had to do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I was looking at there was this authoring tool, and within the settings, there were ways that you could kind of add a layer of interactivity with JavaScript. Oh, I know I've heard of that.
hmm
Oh, I can kind of make it look cool with CSS. Cool. Let me look into that. And I remember I didn't really know still a whole lot about it. So I was like, maybe I can do something with Bootstrap. I had heard about Bootstrap.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, wait a second. This is not,
Everybody's
let me
favorite.
take a step back here. Let me take a step back. But I think what it was for me to finally make things click, and that's what kind of put me on the path of, being more oriented towards the front end, is that I needed like the visual and the kind of the response of clicking and seeing some kind of feedback.
Totally. Yeah.
It's funny at that time, I had just gotten sort of a bad review at work. It was not really deserved, but
Oh, no. Okay.
yeah. But I was like, okay, I gotta change my life. Like I gotta get out of this. I've got my daughter coming soon. She's going to be born next couple months. Living in Southern California is not exactly cheap.
Yeah, it's not the cheapest place.
Yeah. So I got to figure something out. And I thought, okay, I kind of made JavaScript make a little bit more sense to me. Let me see how far I can take this. So I started looking into, I started taking some tutorials, and things were clicking. Although at the time I took a Rails tutorial. So Rails was making sense, but then JavaScript wasn't making sense. It was this weird thing. Yeah, I know. It's strange, right? So when you're still figuring things out, all sorts of things can trip you up, right? Like, Ruby and Python look very sort of clean syntactically. And then I'd look at JavaScript and be like, oh, this looks like a mess. I can't figure this out. So I kind of got into this weird funk, but I knew that this was something that was really making sense to me. And it kind of lit that fire within that I didn't have because I was just floating through life, not really sure what I wanted to do. So I thought, all right, cool. Let me see what's out there. Let's check out, maybe I'll do a boot camp. Oh, boot camps are like $20,000.
Yeah.
All right. I've got a ton of student debt. Can't do that. Well, I know this is what I want to do, so I'm just gonna have to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there, and they're still out there, which is pretty crazy. You can get a coding job in 6 months, and however long, and
3 months,
when you're by
12 weeks.
3 months. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Do our boot camp, and you can get it in 12 weeks. I thought, okay, that's probably not. I had a feeling that wasn't true, but I thought, okay, it could be a year. Well, with doing a full-time job. My wife's a flight attendant, so when she's away, I'm taking care of my daughter.
Okay.
Then we had COVID and all sorts of stuff that just kind of threw a wrench into everything. So ultimately, from that first PR that I put up, it took about 4 years to get my first real full-time job. I was doing a lot of other projects at my previous job. And, everything from like Microsoft SharePoint, like putting little jQuery things in there and building some apps with Python and React as well, sort of like data science-y stuff and automation. But it wasn't a full-time, like 100% software developer gig. So for me to like really fully, completely break in took about 4 years.
Wow.
And that was again, was, trying to juggle like the family and, COVID came along, my job, but also I didn't think about even getting in touch with anyone over something like LinkedIn. I, I would log into LinkedIn and be like, I don't have anything useful to say. And,
It's
everyone's
bounce.
going to think I'm stupid. Everyone's
Everybody
going to
thinks
think,
that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
We all go through that.
so what am I going to do? Just get in touch with someone and say, hey, like, I'm trying
Hey,
to
how are
figure
you
this out.
doing?
Like,
Do you want to have a
yeah,
coffee chat? And it's all awkward, Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
But now it's like that's what everyone does because
Yeah.
everyone knows that that's the effective way, especially if you're trying to learn on your own.
Hmm.
Or if you're in sort of a program. And, I didn't have something like a mentor or just anybody. I didn't know anyone who was in the industry. I was just totally by myself.
You're just figuring out in real time through trial and error.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So when you're on your own, like, you don't know what you don't know. Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for me, I didn't know anything. So it
That
was just,
is really cool, though, that you kept at it because, one, I mean, 4 years is a long time, but not really,
yeah,
in my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
people go to school for 4 years and we think that's completely normal. But for some
yeah,
reason, when people learn to code and they're like, I didn't get a job in 6 months and they think it's a failure. I'm like,
yeah.
it could
Mhm.
take a while. We now make a commitment at Parsity. We say this is going to be about a year. We're going to do
Yeah.
this for around a year and we're going to do our best to get you in a position to get hired. We're confident we can do that, but it's a lot to ask of people. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
15, 20 hours per week of work. And you actually met some students from Parsity being on LinkedIn, which is something
I
we
did.
highly
Yeah.
encourage. We're like, hey, be on LinkedIn. We know that as cliche as it sounds, learning in public is effective. It just,
Yeah.
it works. I mean, I think that's how they came into your like ecosystem, right?
Yeah. I think it was Jacob. I saw his, like,
Yeah, he's
maybe it
very
was his
active.
post.
Shout out to
And
Jacob.
I don't remember. Yeah. Right. He's a cool dude. But I don't remember how I saw it. It just kind of randomly popped up. And
Hmm.
I didn't even know this was my first time over the past couple of months. I've been trying to get more active on LinkedIn and I saw him just kind of posting on his progress. I thought, that's awesome. I wish I did that. This is great.
Yeah.
And, I thought I want to be able to connect with him and kind of, talk about what I went through and kind of
Hmm.
encourage him along the way and see if I can give, kind of, the lessons that I've learned.
What is some advice for those people to avoid some of the mistakes you made?
I mean, the biggest one was the fact that I kind of would put it into two kind of buckets. And the first one is something that we just talked about, which is talking to people, getting out there, networking, asking questions. Because for me, I just, networking is something I don't like. I don't like,
Yeah.
it's changing now. I'm seeing
Hmm.
the value in it, but just, I think back on being the kid in school, like looking for an open seat at the lunch table. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, which one
yeah.
was it? Or
Yeah.
like company events. And I get there and everybody's already talking. You're just standing there like,
Like, how do I
what do I do?
start? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I get in?
And that just every time, even though LinkedIn like is not like that, I still perceived it as that way.
For sure.
So, yeah, I would say, yeah, networking, talking to people, asking questions is just so big because, that would have taught me, number one, it would have taught me some better sort of, the best practices, right?
Hmm.
Because all I knew was just coming from tutorials and building my own stuff. So wasn't necessarily the right way.
Yeah.
Probably not. It worked, but was it the right way? And probably not. And then number two, I was in this situation where I'd look at a job description and see like, okay, this requires React and Mongo and, whatever. So like, okay, cool. Let me go learn those things. And I'd learn them. Then I'd take a look at the next job description and it would say, this needs experience in styled components. I'm like, okay, go learn that. And then I'm just
Oh, yeah.
always chasing
Hmm.
things, never feeling like I know enough.
That learning
And
loop.
so if I had talked to someone, I would have known, hey, I'm already in an okay situation. I already know enough to be able to do this. But instead, I just thought you had to know all the things and be like this master. And now, I'm like, if I'm building a new component or something in the front end, I'm, like, okay, this particular repo that we use is, for example, is using Tailwind. Okay. And then my mind blanks. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I remember when when I first started, I have to memorize Tailwind. But then actually when you're in the thick of it for a couple of years, there's no way to know everything. So
Yeah.
you're just always in
Yeah.
always in the documentation. Like,
Hmm.
So that's something I wish I knew too, was that like this concept that you have to know everything is just not, it's not true. Like there's no way to remember everything.
100%. And then it's interesting too that I meet a lot of people that are really new and they're like, what do you teach me? Because I need to know like this particular skill. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to explain to them like, yes, you need to learn some skill. Like it's not probably a great idea to learn COBOL. There's a there is
You're
a
right.
wrong
Yeah.
answer, but it's also like
Yeah.
we don't have to learn like this particular version of React or something like that. It's more important that you're going to be a software engineer, not a
Yeah.
React engineer, which leads me
Yep.
to, you spoke about a framework which is near and dear to my heart because I went to a startup 7 years ago, something like that. And I was using AngularJS at the time. And then I started learning
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit of React. And then this
Mm-hmm.
place was using Ember. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
my brain broke. I went there
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
like, I felt like I didn't know how to code. I'm like, oh my God,
Yep.
I'm a fraud. What was your experience like with Ember?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
That was coming from React, self-taught coming from React. It was almost as if it was its own language. Like it wasn't JavaScript. It was something completely different. Because it's, it takes a lot from, it was developed, I think, as a framework kind of off of something Apple did like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of rooted in more of kind of the patterns you would see in something like Swift or another programming language, as opposed to something like React, where it's designed to kind of be like, just get up and start building and,
Yeah.
Quickly put stuff, like you can just whip something together like instantly.
Super quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super quick. Whereas Ember, it's not only is it really opinionated, but it's a framework, sort of like how Next.js is, where it's got routing, it's got state management, it has all that built in. So it's more than just, for example, going from React to Next. It's, you got to know the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the coming from React, it was really hard because there's not a lot in terms of documentation or tutorials, like the things that I took for granted. And that's where that was like the first step of really learning the value of, and I think you posted about this recently, actually, being able to go into a code base, look at other people's work and kind of build something off of folks that are already experienced and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And that helped me really learn it. Like, okay, I have to do this thing. Let me see how other people have done it.
Mm-hmm.
How the people at this team do it within this framework.
Pattern recognition. Yeah, it is incredibly difficult. What was like your big takeaway from this experience? Because I know what mine was. Like I felt like ultimately, I think I had a much lower, or I didn't have a grasp on JavaScript the way I thought I did. And that's kind of what Ember showed me. And then once I kind of went back to fundamentals and really got what I consider much better at JavaScript, things started to gradually make more sense. I don't know. I don't know what your experience was with that, or if if it was the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely think so. Ember, when I first started, it was just so difficult because, it's class based, sort of like the old school React, and I think Angular is as well. So you have to make sure that when you're getting, let's say you need to grab a piece of the state or something. With React now with hooks, you can just kind of call the name of the variable, but with Ember, you have to do this dot get, and then you have to pass in the name of the variable. And just that alone was a hurdle for me. It was sort of like your point. Like it felt like I don't know JavaScript.
And you touched on something too. You switched frameworks a few times, just like I have. And I think people hear that and say, well, how do you do that? How do you go from like React to Ember, then from Ember to Swift? And then how does that work out? Won't people only hire you for the same framework throughout your career? Yeah. Can you just briefly explain like what it's like being a professional software developer and going to a company and they say, here's the new thing you're using. Like, how do you upskill in that?
Oh yeah. A lot of things we touched upon, of course, things like tutorials and fortunately we have, AI and LLMs that are trained on a wealth of data. But one thing I've learned over the years, and it's not, unfortunately, for me, it doesn't feel like the easy solution that I want to give, but a lot of this comes with time and persistence and struggle and just like continually just trying to push ahead until it makes sense. And then once things do make sense, things click and just everything changes and you're off to the races. I can speak to that because it took me a really long time to break into the industry. But if I had given up over the years, I would be back at my meaningless job that I was at before.
Can't cheat time in the saddle. I heard somebody say that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah.
as much as we want a shortcut, it's like also when you think about, I might not be young, but I don't feel old yet. And I also know that I have decades left in this career. And I started a
Yeah.
decade ago. And I still feel like I have a ton to learn and a ton that I don't know and things that are changing. So I think generally all of us, maybe Americans or the culture winner, a little too obsessed with getting like this really quick hit. Like we want to know everything really quickly. But then I'm like, well, then what? What happens after you just know everything? What do you just show out at 30 and just be like, well, now I know everything. There's nothing left to learn. I know React and JavaScript and all these languages, and there's not much else. So yeah, I feel what you're saying. Like there's no substitute for just time. I want to switch gears and talk about an interesting story that we talked about on the phone about a peer review, the peer review from hell, which I'm intimately familiar with. If you're a software engineer, or maybe you're not, and you're listening to this, and you're like, what is a peer review? So you write code as a software engineer, and before that code can be integrated into production, which means it goes out for people to actually use on the web or whatever, or some application. Before it goes out there for people to use, it'll be reviewed, kind of like a book almost. Like an editor will look at it, another software engineer will look at it, go through it, and say, I would do this wrong, or why'd you do this? Sometimes these can be really beneficial. You can learn a lot. And sometimes they can be really, really emotional and like deflating. And I've had some really harsh ones, and it sounds like you have too. I'm curious, what was your peer review hell story?
I went through one the other day, so it's still the wounds are still fresh. But those rough PRs reviews, it doesn't matter how long you've been there, you'll still sometimes get taken to task, no matter what. And they can be rough, but that one that I mentioned before, it was kind of one of my first big refactors. It actually turned out to be a pretty rewarding experience. But the refactor, by the way, since we're kind of talking about the PR concept, the peer review process, refactoring some old code just means modernizing it, cleaning it up, making it better. And this was not only modernizing a very big feature that I had never used before, I had also found that it was incredibly slow. So I had to kind of optimize some things as well. That was, I was also new to Ember. So new to Ember, new to this company, new to this particular repo,
and doing a big refactor.
Doing a big refactor, yeah.
Nice.
It was kind of taking some other code from a different repo and sticking it into this one. And I thought, okay, cool. Just, it'll just be an easy copy paste thing. No.
Never that easy.
Yeah. I think the amount of comments that I had in that PR was just, it was the record books of things, of comments. It was a lot of comments, just so many things that changed. And it was tough, but, I remember sending a Slack message to my coworker, like once I finally got it merged and he finally approved it. I sent him an image of one of the game over screens from Street Fighter 2, like Ken just like covered in blood. I was like, this is how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I know that.
I just have to. But it was it really made me question quite a lot of things. Like, am I cut out for this? Like, if this is how all these PRs are going to be for these features, man, I don't know if I can do this. And with each kind of PR, it was a lot of those it was like running through the gauntlet. Like every time, like, okay, in what way I'm just going to push this up, and in what way I'm just going to be just like destroyed this time. And I started implementing this person's feedback. And at first I was like, this works. It's fine. It doesn't matter why you have to be so nitpicky.
Yep.
But I started implementing it, and I started thinking a little bit more before I would push up a PR. Okay, what are my coworkers going to say when I push this up? Okay, well, this thing right here, this could return undefined. So maybe I could put a guard in here, an early return, make sure this is safe and doesn't throw a bug. Here's a good situation where instead of doing, I could do the, nullish coalescing operator or option chaining, or, these things that are more modern, that clean things up. Or for example, I was using a lot of, when I'm doing a fetch request, I was doing a lot of, the older way of doing it. So, then catch instead of async await.
Okay. Yep.
And so I would think before I'm doing this, like, okay, how can I, at first it was, how can I just get the minimal amount of comments?
Oh yeah.
And then that
I play
changed.
that game.
And then that changed to, okay, how would the senior devs on my team think about this? And then it became just natural. Like, okay, this is how I should do this. And eventually those PR reviews became easier and easier till eventually I would get a looks good and an approval, or just a couple of nits and, an approval. I remember the first one I got that didn't have any comments from him. I was just like, God. I have officially proven myself.
Yeah. Oh man,
I can do
feeling
this.
So good.
And at the time, it was miserable. And at the time, it was not something that I enjoyed, but it's hard to say, but, I'm really thankful for him. And at the time I certainly wasn't, but now I'm really thankful for being able to, have someone that was, really demanded excellence, I guess.
Yeah. Totally.
Cause I like to just get things done. Like, all right, let's merge this and get things done.
Me too. Yeah.
There's a balance that you have to take of, speed, but also quality. And I was going too far into the speed and not really having the quality.
I feel like we're the same person. I'm living a lot of this right now. I went from engineering manager and now I'm a senior engineer at a startup. I'm working with a really smart guy, and probably if not the best software engineer I've ever worked with, at least one of them. He's got to be one of them. And he's just been ripping my stuff apart. I'm moving really fast. He moves fast, and he's just better than me, just to be completely honest. And the first PR I got, I was like, oh my, I'm getting fired. This is it. I'm getting fired from this place. There's no way. And since then, I've done the same process you've gone through of like, okay, how can I anticipate? What am I doing? How is he writing his code? How's he doing his PRs? Oh, I need to be a little bit more methodical in this. Yeah. And it's been really, really interesting and powerful. I mean, it's the best way to grow as an engineer. And I always know this because I've now lived this enough that I'm like, every time where I'm feeling really uncomfortable, this is like a season that I'm going to be growing a lot. Because I know when I'm chilling out, the last job when I was kind of chilling, I'm like, I knew my skills were gradually decaying a little bit. That's the price you pay for comfort, especially as a software engineer. Those places where you feel like right on the edge is where you grow the most. Because I remember spending 9 months at one startup and it catapulted my career. And I feel like the same thing is likely happening now. Sounds like the same thing happened for you, right? Like it just increases your code quality, your software engineering trajectory by a lot.
It does, yeah. I was kind of going through that recently with Swift. There's this framework within Swift called composable architecture, which is sort of like Redux for Swift.
Okay,
it's really complicated, and I was just struggling with it. And you get to this point where you're struggling in this one particular framework, then you go back to the one that you usually do, JavaScript, and you forget a lot, and you're like, wait, I already knew how to do all this. And then you go back to the other one thinking that you remember it, what you learned, the new one, and then you forget it all again. So you're in this spot where you don't remember anything. But at the end of this particular PR that I was doing for this iOS app, I got into that eureka moment, that clicking moment.
Yeah.
And where I was learning how to search for things that, like, framing my questions correctly, not just to research the right solution online, but to ask my coworkers. And asking more questions. And that led me to finally understand things in a way that made more sense to me. And that was one of the things that I did want to mention too. I think we were talking about, when you're switching between frameworks and you're switching between languages and stuff. I mentioned that, time and persistence is really important, but being able to ask questions is just critical, and being comfortable with doing it, because nobody knows when you first start. I mean, I still deal with it, like the feeling that you just don't know, like, oh, everyone's going to find out that I'm not smart enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
but you have to be able, I think one of the Stoic philosophers, like Epictetus, said, like, you have to be content with being perceived as the one who doesn't know, the fool. Yeah, because that's the only way to get better. You have to be able to be comfortable in your lack of knowledge to gain knowledge.
True.
Easy. Yeah, you have to, because there are some people who refuse to ask questions. And I've seen people like crash and burn because they refuse to ask questions. They refuse to keep people updated on their work. And it just, everything goes south. And this is something that I'm doing with this, as I'm learning some more about this particularly tough framework, asking a lot of questions, keeping people up to date. Like, okay, I know this is taking a little bit longer. Here's where I am. How can you help?
Yeah, because the opposite of that can get you fired.
Big, and it's leading to me to the answers that I need to make sense of some of those more complicated concepts.
Yeah, that's I'm really glad you shared that and you're comfortable sharing that, because too many people think, I think they look at you, especially think Apple, self-taught, doing this for a while, and they think he's got it all figured out. I don't know what they think about me, but they think, oh, he's just a dummy. But I enjoy when I hear people admit that too. Like, even when I work with the head of engineering at my place, the guy I respect a ton, and he's open about, I don't really get how this works, but let's figure it out together, and then do pair programming, and then seeing like, okay, you're a human too, and we're both kind of figuring this out. You have some more knowledge than I have in some areas, and I might know a little bit in some other areas than you do. But that's really good advice, and it's also the toughest advice. And I've seen so many software engineers not do this. As a manager, I remember one of the biggest issues I ever had was not code quality. It wasn't like people, just writing poor code. It was like, that's fixable. The hardest thing to solve was people not being forthcoming or truthful about what they didn't know and about where they were as far as their work was concerned. And that was a much more difficult problem than I had anticipated. I thought I was going to be just working on code reviews and making sure our code quality is up to date. Like, you can teach that stuff. It's hard to tell a person, hey, if you don't know what was just talked about in this meeting, then you probably need to say something so we're not like weeks or months off track, because that can really bite you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's always one question I like to ask people is, if you were starting off right now, learning how to code, what would you be doing?
So one thing I think about is a lot about what I did was, there's this, people get into tutorial hell a lot, right? Where you do one after the other, and you're just doing the same thing one after the other. What I did that was pretty helpful for me was I took a tutorial, and then I would do it, and then I would do it again, but I would kind of take the core concepts of it and build something totally different. Like, I learned, for example, I took a React weather app, and it was pretty simple, fetch from a weather API, get the data back. But it had some helpful concepts in there about like async await and just sort of like general app architecture, front-end architecture, I mean. I took the concepts from that and then used that to then build this app that will search 3 different Japanese English dictionaries. With just it'll send out a request, and it doesn't have an API, so it just sends back raw HTML if you do a regular fetch request. So from there, I was like, okay, how do I get these words out? I learned about a scraping library in JavaScript called Cheerio.
Cheerio, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a cool one. And then also I did a tutorial on just how to build a social media site on the MERN stack. Did that, and then I used the concepts from that to build a video-based training platform for my dad's martial arts school. So like, he could post a video, he could then create like a playlist from that and a course. He could see what people did, and all that was just the core concepts that I got from those tutorials. So I think if you're just starting off, don't just stick with the tutorial. Take what you learn from the tutorial and build something unique that solves some real world, something real, whether that's an issue like at work or in your own life, or something that you just haven't seen done. Because those core concepts can take you far.
It's a good one. Yeah. Having that emotional attachment to it is so important, because otherwise you're just building something by watching and typing, and it's not as fun. It doesn't keep you motivated to come back after a long day of work, or your kids, or crying at night, or you have to make breakfast in the morning and stuff. You need that emotional motivation, I think, to keep going,
Yeah. And I did some of that stuff. And then once I built my own stuff, like, okay, I have the confidence to build some more things, not from following a tutorial.
Yeah.
Then I built some stuff at work using like Python and a bunch of different data science libraries in Python. So I think being able, and this just extends back to my struggles, even learning programming, is like apply it to the ability to apply it to your own life and use your way of learning. Well, I think will really kind of speed things up for you and take you far.
Man.
Because if you're just kind of stuck in one rigid way, you're going to be stuck there. Whether that's just doing the same tutorials over and over again, or just learning in a way that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's funny because a lot of what you said is what I've done too. And it's just cool to hear that a lot of these themes end up coming through when I speak to people that learned like in a non-traditional way. They kind of learned on their own. And a lot of us have the same patterns we've used, which tells me something. It means that these patterns are probably useful for other people to know and to use on their own too, if they're struggling or trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I get out of this? How do I stop like just watching somebody type? What do I do? And the simple answer is the hard answer, which is build something on your own that you actually care about and try to fill in the gaps as you're going along.
Yeah, definitely. Like that hard thing that you mentioned. Yeah. Like, there's this one band that I like, and they have a song, and the lyric goes, sometimes the only path to take is the hardest one to walk. And like, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because your growth really comes from struggle, I think. And I think, I don't remember, it was Thomas that I was talking to. He mentioned someone who talked about the warrior mindset. And I think that's just so important to have, like this persistence and ability to just continue to push on no matter what the circumstances.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, his name is Aaron Cordova, by the way. He was also a guest here.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you want to look him up,
amazing.
Yeah, really
incredible story. Yeah.
He has a very cool story too. You do too. And thanks again for sharing it here today. I feel like I need to talk to you again. This is a really great conversation. For sure. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking out time to do this.
Yeah, anytime. I'd love to. This was awesome.
Awesome. That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you're serious about switching careers and becoming a software developer and building complex software and want to work directly with me and my team, go to Parsity.io. And if you want more information, feel free to schedule a chat by just clicking the link in the show notes. See you next week.